Hello, Cougar fans. This is Dan Gensler, Sports Information Director at the University of Sioux Falls, talking with number 4 and 7 ranked University of Sioux Falls head football coach, Jed Stugart. Jed, last week you guys moved to 4-0 with a 28-10 victory over Northern State. It was game on the 100th day of Gypsy Days, and so they were ready to play, and the Cougars came out, and while we don't always like to have the other team score first, they did. They got an early field goal on us, but your team responded and came back for the victory. Talk about that victory a little bit.
Well, anytime you go into those circumstances, obviously, it's homecoming and Gypsy Days, and like you said, a great crowd. There was, the elements there were tough too. We had 35, 40 mile an hour winds too. You have all these things that you got to try to keep your guys focused on. Now the elements are for both teams, but you can tell that both teams got to figure out a way to work through that. So I was pretty proud of our guys how they handled that, because the first we have a good stand to start off the game defensively, and of course that's where the wind made the first impact on the game. Obviously, is we muff a punt and they recover and they get 3 points out of it. So sometimes you can't make those kind of mistakes, but it's also tougher. You got to learn to play through those things. So and then I don't think they scored till later in the game to get to 10 points. But we had great drives. We wanted to take time off the clock. We did our 4-minute offense twice during the game, put together long drives and scored. That's kind of what we wanted to do, is control the time of possession. And so it's good when you go out and say, hey, we're going to be in a 4-minute offense, and then go execute it. Maybe we had 2 or 3 big plays that aren't, we don't like, but what we call big plays over 12 yards. And, where, sometimes you can live with 3 big plays by our standard, 12 yards and over. So as a whole, I thought we played pretty well and got out of a tough environment, with a win.
Yeah, truly it was a tough environment, both offense and defense. The offense went 460-some yards in total offense. The defense held Northern State to 260, 140 on the ground. So it was a pretty rounded performance. We missed some opportunity, obviously, there. We had a couple first and goals we didn't cash in on. But, overall, quarterback Luke Papillion directed an offense that was pretty explosive, and there was 2 quick scoring drives, and then there was 2 where you just moved the ball down against the wind and did some good things at the end, right? Right.
It was good to see our run game. Max Mickey, had another good game, but to see also Justin and folks come in, and Jason Towns come in and get some good yardage too, and some good carries there, to continue kind of developing our stable of backs, that you got to kind of have throughout the season. I think it's too, anytime you're going on the road and come out with still a convincing win. You brought up, this week we really focused in practice, red zone production on both sides. Offensively, we're spending a lot of time with it this week. Defensively, we had a good stand, but just over 4 weeks, it's not where we wanted it to be. So that's been an area that we're focusing on this week as we go to Wayne, is to get better in the red zone on both sides, offensively and defensively.
A kid that doesn't always get a lot of publicity, but he's been a key pin in this program for a little while, and that's Garrett Shot.
Yeah.
His second game, he's had 2 touchdown receptions, and he came up big for you on Saturday.
He does fly under the radar. Just he's always a kid that you wouldn't think would have a lot of great speed, or people would be curious about him, and then you realize that he's got deceptive speed, and he runs great routes. He's got great hands, and sometimes guys are spending time covering Josh and Brady and Stanky and these guys, and all of a sudden Shut kind of is the afterthought until he burns them, and all of a sudden so Garrett's been doing that for us for a while. We always joke, I feel like he's been here longer than I have. It's been because of injury and red shirt, and which has been a blessing to have him in our program this long, and so it's been good for us.
Yeah, there was on the defensive side, Marco Naughton doesn't always get a lot of publicity. He plays in the middle,
Yeah.
but he's really been a horse inside for you this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, Grant and him, two arguably probably the two better tackles in our league. I think, just watching how much time they spend behind the line of scrimmage. Marco, playing the nose technique is a tough, taking on a lot of double teams, very strong, and that's, and Grant's the same way, because sometimes he's put in that position too, a lot of times, and to have those two guys. But really proud of the way Marco's been playing. In fact, our whole defensive line, pretty satisfied with kind of what they're doing in the trenches.
Grant Schindler, he's been a horse, but he's really he's one of the leaders of that defense, along with Cam Ostrom and Solomon St. Pierre and John Tidwell. But along that defensive front, I mean, you've had two newcomers, Drew Jackson, Wesley Johnson, a couple of kids that I think have stepped up pretty well for you, haven't they?
Absolutely. One of the things we've tried to get to is having a lot of depth in the D-line, and kind of keep that revolving door going. And so, both those guys have been, I don't want to say surprises, because, we felt like they could do that once they got here, but to see them come out and just quickly be doing what they're doing has been, an added blessing for us just up front, because, you got to make it through the long haul, you got to stay healthy, you got to stay fresh, and really proud of what those two guys are bringing to the table, especially from a pass rushing standpoint.
Let's go back to the offense real quick before we jump over to Wayne State and do a little preview of that game. I've long admired the ability of Trevor Wescott. He's a captain, and he really shows it every game.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on Trevor and what he means up front for you?
Yeah, he's become everything that when you recruited him. When we recruited him, I had the chance to recruit him, and it was pretty cool, getting to know him. And you kind of think out ahead, man, this kid could really be a special kid, just as a person. Leadership, work ethic, as a coach, he's hit everything that his coach said he'd be. And so, the leadership that he kind of brings up to our team, but in the offensive line, and just, it's just, it's awesome. It's very, you don't see old linemen becoming elected captains by the teams very often. Sometimes that goes to skill positions and all this stuff, and it just goes to show you the respect that this team has for Trevor. One of my favorite kids. Just ever since he's been here, just that I've recruited, he's just awesome.
Very respectful to everyone, and but that's true of your team. I mean, he epitomizes what your team's all about, and probably because he's one of those guys that brings it out in everybody else. Let's talk about Wayne State. Dan McLaughlin's got his team out to a 3-1 start. They lost their starting quarterback and started a redshirt freshman, but they're putting up some points, and they look like they're a very strong team. Tell me, they're averaging over 400 yards in total offense, and talk about that matchup this weekend in Wayne.
Well, I think this is going to be the better team that we've played in the last few weeks. Duluth obviously is the toughest team we've played to date. But I think Wayne, number one, Dan and their crew has endured a lot of adversity, really. They lost some coaches in the off season, so they got some new coordinators. Went quite a while without a defensive coordinator while they were working through that. And so they got a late start coming to the fall camp. For them to be 3-1, it goes to show you the kind of players they have, because they're doing a great job with all the stuff they've kind of gone through. They've changed defenses a little bit with a new coordinator. An offense very similar. I'll tell you about our matchups. I think we watch in film, we see a lot of similarities in what they're doing offensively to our offense. They've kind of, since Osborne's gone down with the hand injury, they've kind of stayed pretty true to their offense. They got a good run game and a great running back that we had a hard time with last year, and he's going to remember that. He had a great game against us last year, and so it's been a focal point. Is I think that we have to shut down this run game and kind of put it on the shoulders of their quarterback, just because he is young, but I tell you what, he's been productive. So it's we've really got to pay attention. We're at their place. And so offensively, like I said, we're seeing some similar things out of them that we see out of our offense. So our defense isn't going to be too surprised by it, because we see it a lot. You know, defensively, they've kind of become a little bit more conventional, meaning in their defense in a four-down line. That you know, their old defensive coordinator Mike Aldridge, that was a little bit more brought a lot more pressure. Those guys come from everywhere, so we're seeing a different defense by them than maybe we've seen in the past. But you know, again, I look at the word sound. You know, they've been a sound defense. You don't see a lot of big plays. Doesn't mean that I don't think we can try to hit some big plays on them. You know, I think they, you know, everybody, like, including us. I mean, you got to expose that. But you know, we feel pretty confident that you know, if we just kind of go in and play the way we're supposed to play and respect the team we're playing, you know, we can hopefully get out of there. But be a good game though, and been real admired what Dan, who's a friend, good guy, what he's done with a lot of change there. Done a good job.
Finally, this week, well, 2 weeks ago, you went into the top 5 in the D2Football.com poll for the first time in the Division II history. You're number 7 in the AFCA. That held for the last 2 weeks. You know, a lot of coaches don't necessarily pay attention to those rankings, but you're also number 5 in the NCAA.com Division II Power Poll. What does that mean for the program? I mean, just the ratings themselves.
Well, I don't think you can deny, you know, being grateful that, you know, people have chosen you in that position. I mean, the AFCA is a coach's poll, so I mean, obviously, they're respecting what USF has done, and I attribute that to our players. You know, I think the coaches speak part that you're talking about is, you know, that doesn't win ball games for you. I mean, sometimes it even puts a little bit more of a target on your chest. And so we have to, you know, we got to pay attention. I mean, it's one of those things because, I mean, we're going to get everybody's best game right now. I do think it's deserved. I mean, I look at how hard our kids work, how hard our coaches work, and the way they're playing and the teams they beat. You know, it doesn't surprise me. You know, I think these kids have worked hard, and I think they deserve that recognition. But I do know they're not satisfied with when we announce that on Mondays. We kind of just let them know where they're at. Of course, let them pay attention. I don't know that they're cheering and screaming over it because they know that they want to get something sweeter than that. But it's flattering, you know. I think it's nice to know people. So you got to appreciate that. I try not to just cast it away too much because it's you know, again, when you're not even thought of or voted on, then people tend to be offended by that. So we need to be grateful for the people that have thought of us.
Earned respect in some ways because you've done it, moving up in your 4th year at Division II. Yeah. Finally, one last question. Where are you at heading into week 5 with your football team? You feel good about where you're at?
Well, I do. You know, I think we've targeted you know, penalties this week. I feel like we're committing too many of them. Some of those are concentration, some of them are out of our hands a little bit, and some penalties when kids are being aggressive and playing hard as a DB. I don't want them to get not aggressive. You know, we had a few interference calls that as an old defensive coach, you know, I want our guys to be aggressive. So, you know, the ones that we can control are the ones that drive me crazy. So we're working on that. I think we've got, you know, I think we're very together as a team. I do think we're pretty balanced with all 3 phases. I don't see a huge weakness on our team, but there's always things we can improve on. We're fairly healthy. I mean, we got the normal banged up guys this time of the year, and I think the timing of getting a couple of those guys back's looking good. So, you know, I like where we're at, and I like where this team is as far as just loving each other and love playing with each other. You know, and I love that aspect of it because they do enjoy they enjoy playing with each other. I mean, you know, they enjoy that. So I like where we're at.
Thanks, Jed. Quickly, they play Wayne State at 1 o'clock tomorrow, or excuse me, on Saturday at Bob Cunningham Field. Come join us. Thank you. Thanks, Jed.
Thank you, Dan.